Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today I'm broadcasting from my studio from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm sending the broadcast out to all USA and around the world on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and checking the chat room. I'll put the chat room on right now because I want to encourage you sign in and let me know where you're from and during the broadcast if you have questions or comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today, last weekend, I was working in plein air. I always try to get out on the weekend to do some plein air painting, which I usually do. And every time I'm out there, I take an opportunity to find something interesting. And I believe it or not, I pick up leaves and sticks and so forth that interest me. And today I'm going to do that. We're going to do what I call a pine cone painting. And so I brought it back to the studio, and I'm going to set it up as a still life, and I'll paint from that. So this is something I found lying on the ground, and I thought it was very interesting, and I thought I would share that with you. So let's go over to my painting table, and let's get started. Move my mic over. Turn the light on. Okay, we're ready to roll. Okay, this is what I found laying on the ground. This is a pine cone with a partial limb and so forth, and I thought it was very interesting. And I said, that's something I'll be painting. And also, there's always leaves on the ground, different colors and so forth. So it just fascinates me, the shapes and the sizes and the different colors. Now, these colors will last for a little while, and then they'll turn brown eventually and so forth. But if they're a good shape, I'll put them in an envelope and keep them. I've had them for several years, the same shapes of leaves. So I have quite a collection of leaves. So I'll put these aside. Okay, now to get started here, I'll put my little display aside. I just want you to see this is really a real twig that I found lying on the ground during my plein air last weekend. So what I did, I set this up as a photograph, and I put a light on it so I have a nice shadow pattern. You can see here it's quite a dramatic view here of the pine cone. So that's going to be the subject matter today. How do I paint a pine cone? Well, it's going to be very interesting. I look at the shapes and look at the sizes, and I do a drawing. I did my drawing here, my design drawing. And what I want to point out here is, if you look at the shapes here, the pattern of the pine cone all run in a diagonal dimension or diagonal direction, and also the spaces between also run in a diagonal direction. So that is really the key to drawing or sketching this particular subject, is to study the subject and then find out if there's a characteristic shape or a characteristic maybe a mark. And I found that the diagonal mark is what really works. And you can see here that diagonal pattern here of the parts of the pine cone. Okay, this photograph here is going to be in my my website, and let's go over some of the materials and where to find it. The colors I'm going to be using today, the watercolors, will be yellow ochre at the very top, Quinacridone gold, Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and Payne's gray. And I'll be using different mixtures of that to do the painting today. These are all Holbein watercolors, and they're all on my website. Holbein watercolor brushes, I'll be showing those a little bit in a minute. And the paper I'm going to be using is the Gemini 140-pound cold pressed paper. And I'll be using the palette in the bottle, which is available only on Everett's Watercolors, my dot sprayer. My website is listed here. www.everettswatercolors.com, and that's where you'll log in and find the Fun with Watercolor page, Watercolors. That's the link to get the download of the photograph and the sketch and the drawing. And on Facebook, the Everett Watercolors art group is where you can go and join, and you can display your art. If you do something here on my website or on my weekly broadcast, and you want to display it, you can put it on Everett Watercolors art group, and that's in Facebook. And I'll have the links to both of these in the comments to the video today. Okay, all this equipment I'm showing you today will be available on my website, everettswatercolors.com. So let me move this out of the way. So this photograph is reference, and the drawing which I've done here, the sketch, shows you the detail of how I drew it up. Put that aside. So this is also away. So what I've done here, it fits on I usually use a half sheet of a quarter sheet. This is going to be an 8 sheet, so really I just use half of the quarter sheet to do the diagram. So I've sketched my pine cone here on my watercolor paper. And first thing I'm going to do, first two brushes I'm going to use the Holbein flat 1-inch brush and the Holbein 3/4 inch brush. These two brushes here. Okay, first I'm going to mix up. I've decided how I'm going to paint this. I'm going to start by putting in the background, and I'm going to just talk about colors. I'm really going to just start out with contrasting colors of ultramarine blue and yellow ochre with maybe a little bit of quinacridone gold, and that'll be my primary colors today in this color scheme. So it'll be a complementary color scheme of blue and orange. But let's start with the background. I'm going to start with the background. I'm going to use a complementary. I'm going to use the blue. So ultramarine blue. Okay. I'll mix up the color first. Put a little bit of water on the palette, and the ultramarine blue is right here. Mix up a little bit. Don't want it too thick. I'm going to have a nice, maybe a medium value background. So I thought I'd put the background first in today. So I'm going to use the big brush, the 1-inch brush. I'm going to just put a little bit of water. On my paint, all right? Take a little bit of water. I'm just going to wet the paper just a little bit here to get started. Just wet it up on there. Just get it a little bit damp. That'll help the paint flow. Okay, and I'll go down and I'm going to start with the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to go along the edge here and really just paint in the background. So I'm going to start here along the edge, and what I'll do, I'll turn the paper a little bit because I want the paint to run down, not into my design. A little bit of detail here on the end of or the edge that I've put in here. I'm just carefully going around that design of my pine cone, and then coming out here to the edge to get the blue in, the blue background color. I'll pick up a little more paint. So I'm using the 3/4 inch flat brush to go around here to get the background in. It really is my background brush. Okay, and I'm going to add some more water to the paper. I'm going to come around here to the bottom. So I'll take this a little bit of section at a time. Now I did the right side, and I'll do this side over here. Then I'll pick up some more paint and going around the corner here. Reminds me of Cape Cod going around the corner. I'm going to keep that paint flowing. It'll be nice. It'll be a nice smooth background. Again, it's not really important exactly, because the background can vary. You can have it smooth. You can have a little texture in it, or just paint it. Let the watercolor do its thing. I just add a little bit of water to it and let it go. Okay, so what's happening is the background is just a nice little setup here for the main character, which is going to be the pine cone, which is going to be the complementary color. So let me get wet this up a little bit more up here to the top. Just get that water in there, and you can see by putting the water down first, it helps the paint to flow a little quicker, and it just keeps it nice and moist. You want to, as long as the paint is wet, you can manipulate a little bit. Once it starts to dry, then that's where you want to stay away from it, because then you start making blossoms and blooms and so forth. If you want a smooth background or a smooth painting, then you want to keep it nice and moist. And it can, the curls are varying. I don't worry about that. I want the background to be a little bit variable, and I may put some more color in there before it dries. But right now, we'll just leave it right as is. Bring it up here to the top. Okay, now's a good time to look around and see what I like. I like everything that's going on. It's still wet, so this is the time to play with it, but I don't want to play anymore. Okay, now I'm going to turn the paper one more time. I hope I don't make you dizzy. I'm just going to move it around so I can get to the top here. I'm going to wet the top of the paper. Just plain water. Using this is the 1-inch Holbein. These are synthetic brushes, but they're really nice. This 1-inch brush really carries a lot of water, and it does a good work for me. Okay, I'm going to start out here at the edge of the pine cone. This little limb I picked up, it came along with it. I thought it was very interesting. I found this laying on the ground in the park. I was there painting away, and I took a little walk, a little stroll to see if I could find some other subject to look at or take pictures of. And I just happened to find this lying on the ground. I didn't take it off the tree. I found it laying on the ground, just as I saw it. And I said, well, hey, I can paint that. That's an interesting subject. So that's where nature can provide an awful lot of material that's interesting to paint. Okay, now I'll wipe off the edge here, so wipe off the edge so that the paint doesn't go back into the painting. Keep it from causing a problem at the edge. Just wipe off the excess moisture. Move it over here. Okay, that's a nice little background. I like that. I can go around. I think now, from my interpretation there, probably the way this looks, it's like the sunlight is coming from this side over, because this is lighter. So we can just make that up as a story. The sunlight's coming in from the left side. It depends on which way it would have turned out. Okay, now I'm gonna dry this. I'm gonna dry this before I go any further. What I've done is I've painted in the background using Ultramarine Blue. And just wet the paper first. You get the paper wet, and then I went in and put the Ultramarine Blue in and let it run. I'll move the paper around. I'm going to get it nice and dry before I go to the next stage. You touch the paint, just make sure it's dry. You always touch it with the back of your hand. If it feels cool, then it's still damp. So that's the time to avoid it. But everything's dry. Okay, now the second phase, I'm going to start working on the pine cone. I almost want to call it a pineapple. It's a pine cone. Let me move the brushes over. Move this brush over here. Okay, I'm going to pick up two new brushes now. I'm going to use the Holbein number 16 round and the Holbein number 8 round. Okay, those two there. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on the details. The first thing I'm going to do is mix up a little yellow ochre. That's the primary color of the pine cone. Or that's the local color. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of Quinacridone gold. I have a little bit down here in the corner. Gives me a nice colorful mix. Now, what I'm doing, I'm going to make a light value here. I don't want it too dark. I want to start in watercolor. You always want to start out with a light layer, and then you can always go back in and darken it up later. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a nice light value in here using the number 16 round. Now I'll go in here and touch up some of this edges here. A little bit of that Quinacridone gold. Yeah, I think I'll turn the paper just a little bit so I can work from this angle. So now I'm painting in the pine cone with the yellow ochre. That'll give me the nice color I want on the pine cone. A little bit out here on the tips. Okay, and also I'm going to make the branch here. I'm going to give it the same color, even though it was gray when I picked it up. I'm going to use when I made the photograph out of it. I had a regular lamp on the subject, and it turned a little bit yellow. I said, "Well, that'd make a nice color." So I said, "Well, I'll make the branch also a little bit yellow or brown." So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. All right. Now I've got to dry that. Let me make a few minor touches here. I'm going to make sure I filled in more of the edges. So I'm going around just fine tuning a little bit of the edges, making sure I've got enough paint out there. Okay. Okay. I like what's going on. All right. Now I need to blow dry that. So I mixed up a mixture of yellow ochre and quinacridone gold. And I painted in the base color. I call it a base color or a local color of the pine cone, which is it's a light brown. Feel a little damp when you check with the back of your hand. If it feels cool, it's still wet. Okay. And all right, now the next part is kind of the fun part, or the part that really makes it look like a pine cone. It'll be the dark sections of the photograph. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of dark color. I don't need I'll leave that alone. I'm going to mix in with that Ultramarine Blue. I'm mixing in a little bit of burnt sienna. And maybe a little bit of Payne's gray, just a touch. because I want it has to be dark because it's in shadow. I want to be have a brown color to it. That's why I'm putting burnt sienna in there, and also the blue will give it a darker brown. But also we need to have a dark, so I'm going to use the Payne's gray to really darken it up. Okay, and I can take my little test sheet here. You can see that it's going to be a nice dark brown. Nice dark brown color is what I want. Okay. All right. Now, so how we're going to paint this thing is go back to the photograph. I'm going to be putting in the dark shadows now of this. You can see the colors. When I took this photograph, this pine cone was still fairly fresh. This was a week ago, but since I had it laying in the studio and it dried out and it gets in the heat and so forth, so the normal temperature, it dries out, and of course up close it's brown now or gray. But you can see the nice golden colors, and I'm going to put the dark areas on the pine cone. So that's where that pattern comes in, and I'm going to use a smaller brush to get started. That's where that pattern comes in. There's a diagonal mark, and I'll put these in here so we can get an idea of the structure. So it's very interesting about nature. All items, even everything in nature has a structure to it. And the more we study that, the more we can learn that, the more educated we'll know about our surroundings and how things are made and how they grow. So you can see this diagonal pattern. It was very interesting, and there's also a cross pattern here which goes the opposite way, and then this shape now will make the pine cone start to take shape. So I'm just kind of putting in a little pathway here so you can see where I'm going. I could start at the top and just move down, but this way I think you'd understand where I'm going as far as the pattern goes, because it looks like a little puzzle here, and in fact it is. So you can see that what the fascinating part about this, about a pine cone or any other thing in nature, is it has a structure, and it's a lot of fun to paint. I paint a pine cone maybe once a year. I'll find one that I like, and I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. All right. I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to start with the smaller sections here with a smaller brush. This is number 8 round, and so these are the smaller details up here in the top, because this is where the small areas is. So I'll get the first couple strokes in there to get it started. And I need this nice dark color to give the shadow effect of what I'm looking at. You need to have the darks and the lights in order to have something really show up. And this is what I have: a nice dark area against a light area. And that's a good combination to have for a area of interest, is to have high contrast, the light against the dark. And this one we sure have it. I have the lightest area against the darkest area, and that'll give it a nice impact for the painting. Okay. All right, now I can move to my bigger brush, which is the number 16 round. I'll fill that up. And now I can go in here with a larger brush now and fill in some of the larger areas. So I switch brushes. And now I begin to build the shapes. And to me, painting is very meditative. You can get started on a pattern of some kind, and then just continue on. It's a relaxing process. I've enjoyed painting for a long time, and this is one way of just relaxing and enjoying what you're doing. And I really enjoy painting. And I enjoy sharing it. This is why I have my weekly broadcast, is to share some ideas and hopefully inspire uh, anyone to try. I think most of the things in art, or most of the things in life, is just try it out. Now, if you're going to paint along, this is one area that you can have fun with, because get the drawing and get it on paper. That takes a little bit of concentration, but that's a good exercise also, is learning how to paint, learning how to draw a subject. Uh, you can actually take that drawing I have. You can print it off, and you actually, if you had to, just trace it. You could just trace it off. It's traceable. You can use tracing paper. You can use a copier, whatever works. There's no right way and no wrong way to do something. There's several ways you can try. Find the best way for you, and whatever works for you, and make it work. Now, as I go along, this takes a little bit of time here, but you'll see as I go along, you'll start seeing the shapes really starting to make the pine cone come alive. As soon as I get a little more row, a couple more rows here. I'm just trying to be careful going through it, because I'm trying to follow my design. And one thing I found out as I was doing this is that every one of these shapes is different. There's no duplication anywhere. And number one, it's that's unique to Mother Nature, because not everything has to be perfect. Everything is lined up, but if you really look closely, there's a rhythm in nature that keeps things from being exactly the same. It's like a rhythm, or the differences make it more interesting. So the different shapes in here, these little shapes I'm painting in now, if you'll notice, you take notice and you take a look at the picture, you'll take a note at the drawing. Every space here is different. Every shape is different. And that's the other thing I like about it, is the variety of the shapes, different kinds of shapes. And now I'm just trying to work around. I'm going to get the major sections in here and go back. I'll double check everything. But right now I'm just trying to get into major value here, just dark value. And this combination of Ultramarine Blue and burnt sienna, a little bit of Payne's gray, makes a real nice dark mix. But I picked that color because that's what that's what the photograph also presented to me, was a dark color. But also, when you look at the actual object, and it's got darker areas because of the subject matter. So you got to pick a color that matches what you're trying to say. So this shadow here gives me the design of this particular pine cone shape. It gives me the gaps between the pine cone. And I was actually a little side story. I was actually out running the other day, a couple days ago, and I happened to pick up a pine cone on the way, a small one. So there's all kinds of shapes out there. But even while I'm running, I'll pick up, if I find a leaf, find a leaf or something, I'll pick it up even while I'm out running. Being very careful how I carry it or how I store it. But that's another story. The point is, when you're out in nature and enjoying the scene, be aware of what you're looking at. Be aware of around you, your surroundings. Now I'm going to go back to that smaller brush. Now I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to clean up some of the edges here, just to make sure I'm happy with it. Okay, so going up here and making sure I got these real small areas covered, get the gaps in. So now I'm kind of fine tuning some of the edges, just fine tuning it. And to make sure, I'm gonna make sure they look like the shapes that I saw on this pine cone. Okay. Okay, I'm just cleaning up a little bit, just little minor touches just to make sure I got the shapes right, and also getting the gaps, the shadow parts in between, get them nice and sharp. And you know, you can make this as accurate as you want, or just I could have made not an abstract, but I could have made a real simplified version. But I decided to go on the whole hog. I wanted to paint it just exactly as I saw. Yes, reading my comments over there. Good afternoon. Hi, Emily. Nice seeing you. Thank you for checking in. Hi, hello, Alice. Yes, it's coming along very fine. Uh, it's really when I before I finish here, it's going to start looking like a pine cone, and that's kind of the trick here is to make it make it look similar. You know, it's not to try to copy exactly, but you want to make it. You want to make your impression. My interpretation here. Uh, I take the object, but then I paint it the way I see it, or the way I want to see it, or want others to see it. And the interesting thing about this was the pattern. I mean, when I studied, I said, well, how am I going to? Number one, when I pick something up or draw or take a look at a picture or something or look at an object, my first question is, well, how can I paint that? How am I going to paint that? What's the main parts? And when I looked at this pattern on here, I said, "Wow, that's got a pattern. That's got, I can follow the pattern of the shapes and so forth. And there's a cross pattern going the other way." I said, "That's marvelous." So I fell in love with that. So that made me really excited about painting this. I said, "Well, I can discuss that also is what to look for when you're deciding what to paint or what to look for or when you find something and what's interesting." The next question is, well, how can I paint that? What's the secret to it? What's the best ingredient? And here I found this shape and pattern to be, to me, the most interesting part of the pine cone was the pattern, the darks and the lights. And I think that's what makes the painting, the darks and the lights. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is just put a few touches up here on the branch, and they're just minor. This was just rough texture. There was no really shape this was just part of the branch out here. Kind of an abstract marks, just showing that it's a rough, no detail. Doesn't need detail. Just an idea that there's little grooves in there. It's just a branch that's holding up the pine cone. I might put a little bit of dark. I'll put a little bit of dark right here to show off that edge of the pine cone. What I can do. So I'll take advantage of the dark and lights. So this dark area here will show off the top of the very top of the pine cone right there. And marry that in with the rest of the point, the rest of the design. And balance that off over here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to dry this. Okay, final touches here. going to take the bigger brush here, and I see as you go through, I'm going to fill in some. I'm going to take this real darker now. Now the shadow is really dark in here, so what I'm going to do is I'm filling in some of the little white marks. There's some little light marks here in the painting parts, so I'm filling those in now, and I'm putting the darkest darks I have here, which is that mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, a little bit of Payne's gray. So I'm making sure I got those darks really dark. So I'm filling in all the little white marks. Okay. Now you could fuss with it as long as you wanted, to make the edges and so forth. But I think at this point I'm going to just show you something else. I'm gonna dry that off a second. Okay, all right, it's nice and dry. All right, okay, I got one more phase here to give this thing a little more, I would say, a characteristic of what we saw. Now, I showed you this first layer of color I put on it was yellow ochre. I'm going to put a little bit more, a little darker mix here of the Quinacridone gold, because I want to give this pine cone a little golden touch. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to go in just a quick brush strokes. And I'm going to just give a little more characteristic, a little more golden touch in there. And that orange versus the blue is also a contrast. I like that. Remember, we were talking about contrasting colors, the contrast between the orange and the blue. That's my main scheme today, was orange and blue. That's my painting scheme. And you pick a painting scheme that works. You get one that, this one here, I wanted to use contrasting colors, orange and blue. That also makes the painting more interesting. So that little dab of orange yellow, it's really a nice this Quinacridone gold is a nice golden yellow. I like it. That gives a golden glow to the paintings. And I'll put a little bit more. I'll put a little bit up here on the branch. Doesn't have to be everywhere. Just like a highlight, to show that the sun is hitting that limb. Leave some of the whites on there. Leave some of the lighter colors there. That's okay. Gives a nice variety. Okay. Now I think what I'll do, the final touch. I'm gonna go around and make sure these endpoints now that I have are really showing up. So the pine cone has, if you've ever picked up a pine cone, I'm sure everyone has at this point in their life, they've seen the pine cones. When you pick them up, they have a little sharp points on them, and they can prick your finger if you're not careful. But those are the little points that I'm trying to bring out now on the edge of the pine cone, making sure that they show up nice and light, a little gold touch. Okay. Okay, well, I think that will complete the painting for the pine cone. If I wanted to go in and make any final touches, it would just be to make little corrections, and I don't think we need to do that. Now, let's go ahead and put that under a frame. I always like to put a frame around a picture when I finish it. So put the little frame around this, and let's straighten that up a little bit. Okay. All right. There's the picture. There's the painting of the pine cone. As you remember, we started out with showed this on my table. This is the one I picked off on my little plein air trip last weekend, and I think it comes pretty close to what it looks like. That's what I saw. It's a little bit dried out now. It looks a little bit brown, but I brightened it up a little bit of orange. I thought orange would be a nice color. Okay. Right. So I think it came out very nicely. Okay, let's go to my main table. Got my picture over here. Coming over to the main camera. Got stuff falling around over here. Where's my mouse? I lost the mouse. Okay. All right. Well, that was an interesting phase here. I guess my tip for today is that while you're out taking walks or while you're out strolling or even taking a trip somewhere, look around you. Maybe you'll find something out there in nature that's nice to capture. You don't have to bring it home with you, but which is what I did with the pine cone. But something like that. Maybe you'll find a beautiful flower. You'll find something lying on the ground that maybe it's a leaf that just blew by. It has a different color or different shape to it, or a pine cone or a piece of wood that is small and so forth. Anything in nature that makes sense and something that really attracts you, gives you something that caught your attention. And that's what happened to me when I was walking in the woods last weekend during my plein air. I was painting and I went and took a little walk to take a break. And then I found the pine cone. I said, hey, well, let's paint that. So what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to do a leaf. I found a nice maple leaf, and I think that's something else we can try. So I'm in the mood now for painting nature. So that'll be my next view. So next week's going to be painting a leaf. Now, those of you that have been watching in today, if you want to paint along, I'll have the links to my Fun with Watercolors page, which you can download the photograph and you can download the drawing that I did and paint along. And then post it on my Facebook page, Everett's Watercolors art page, which I'll have the links below in this video. And then show me what you do, and then give me some comments about today's broadcast. So I'll be back again next week on Thursday at 2 o'clock. And let's say I think the plan right now is I'll probably be painting a leaf, unless I find something else between now and then. But I do plan on painting a maple leaf. So I'll see you then.